So Here's What Happened is a proud member of the But Why Though podcast community. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of So Here's What Happened. I am your host, LaNeysha, and I'm joined by my lovely co-host. Can't just
Carolyn.
wave. And we also have a special guest today. Carolyn, would you like to introduce our special guest?
Oh my gosh. Today we are joined by director and producer Jennifer Holness to discuss her documentary, Subjects of Desire, a film which touches on topics such as colorism, the beauty standards, and stigmatization of Black women in North America and around the world. And we'll get into her film, which is currently, as we're recording, screening at the Hot Docs Film Festival and previously showed at the South by Southwest Film Festival. We're in April, so that would have been February.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So Jennifer.
Hi there, everyone. Well, no, thank you for inviting me for this conversation. Mm-hmm. Yes, I am. I'm a writer, a producer, a director, and I did all that on the film. But I haven't really directed a lot. And I was really for telling this story, about Black women in beauty and the power behind beauty. I was like, no. I really I wanted to tell this story on all three fronts, So,
Mm-hmm.
so here you have it. And when we got into South by, we had sent in a fine cut, a very close fine cut. But I actually thought we wouldn't get in because, it's not even a locked picture. And we did. Mm-hmm. And so I really enjoyed South by. It was a great experience, but I literally feel like I finished the film 3 days before, and like I didn't have a poster because I was trying to finish the film, and I didn't have a poster, and I didn't have a trailer. But now I have all those things for Hot Docs. So yeah.
Wow. I would not have been able to tell that you finished that 3 days before it premiered, because I was just like, this is something. Like I will say, like, one of my first impressions after I watched it, because then I think I messaged Carolyn, another one of our friends, Kate. She was also covering from our website, and I just like, yo, this one made me think. It just like, and I wrote the review for it on our website, But Why Though, where our podcast is in the network on, and I just couldn't think of any other words to describe it, but besides, thought-provoking, because I just feel like you did a tremendous job putting this together. So I'm even more impressed that you finished 3 days before the festival and had it to a point where you could show it to people, because that's amazing.
Thank you very much. Yeah, no, you gave us a nice review. I was like, yeah, man, and then when you requested to do this conversation, I was like, yeah, she gets my film.
Yeah, I'm glad that I always feel like, I feel like I write too much, but then I'm like, no, I have to speak about all of this. I have to get all my thoughts out about this film right now. But thank you so much.
Yeah, saying that you finished it just a few days before the festival is super impressive, and also not uncommon. Like, I know that happens with quite a bit, quite often with film festivals, and I think it kind of shows the passion of filmmakers like yourself, where you're trying to make sure that you get everything you want to get into these films, and that all of the important bits are added in. And like, yeah, I'm sure there's footage that's left on the cutting room floor and segments of interviews that you weren't able to capture, but what you were able to put into it is what matters. So yeah, 3 days. Mm-hmm. The point of the matter is that you got it done, and you finished it, and it was able to be seen like by people like myself and LaNeysha, because like, as Black women, like, this kind of documentary is very important. And just the name alone, I think, is, to use the term, provocative, but it does say so much, because it, like, you can use the word desire it can have different connotations depending on the context. So could you talk a little bit first about just the name of it, because it carries, I think, so much weight, especially with the subject of Black femininity and Black beauty and Black I would say also self-confidence, because that is one of the top issues that is discussed a lot in the film.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I mean, I think a part of it was that the idea of desirability is something that I think as Black women we've all had to contemplate, and I think even contemplate because I think that a lot of the ways in which the media has tried to portray us is that we're that desirability is something that's not necessarily associated or connected to Black women in a really
Mm-hmm.
powerful way. So, for example, it's not in the film, but some of the research I did was about the fact that there was stuff saying that Black women on dating sites were like least likely to be selected, or and when they did, it was often in these fetishized ways, or where people were really fetishizing
Mm-hmm.
them, and so forth. So the question of desirability is one I think that as a Black woman I've grappled with, in terms of feeling that I was perfectly desirable, but that maybe the world didn't necessarily see that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that was an important part of the title. And then subjects also. Here's the thing: we have grown up being told that the objectification of women is, in fact, something that is detrimental to us. And it, in fact, is the
Mm-hmm.
objectification of women. But here's the thing: in media, the object has often been a white woman. It's something to chase, to covet, to seek. And so, even in this context, where the objectification of Black women, it hasn't been on the same. It's not the same plane. White women
Mm-hmm.
are objects, right? So, in some ways, I made the title subjects because I want to say we are now telling our own stories. So we're the subject here. We don't need to be the objects, but let's look at desirability and let's understand why the narrative around Black women have not been one that um, we that reflects our true sense, our true feelings, who we are.
Mm-hmm.
Mm,
Wow.
I think for me also, it's not only about desirability from people and like society, but also I think for ourselves, because the way I was saying it is that we have to desire ourselves and accept ourselves
Yeah,
too. And I think that
Mm-hmm.
that's to me the biggest issue with regards to the way that we're stigmatized. Like we're told that we have to meet these beauty standards of people who aren't even us, whether it can be white, we can also include Asian, people who are other people of color, and they're telling us what they want us to look like, and then we stop desiring ourselves, we stop desiring who we are as not only women but who we are as Black people, and we start to like hate everything about ourselves. I'm here touching my hair, but that's one of the biggest things that we are
Mm-hmm.
taught to dislike about ourselves. So when you talk about desirability, it's about, I think, not only desiring ourselves like as women, but just as individuals as well.
Mm-hmm. And I really like how you kind of like show that conversation kind of unfold naturally. Like you do these like not round table, but I distinctly remember there's the discussion with the young girls, have talking about like when was the first time that like you felt like you didn't want to be Black or something. I'm paraphrasing, but something along the lines. And it was just like, it really took me a minute to be like, whoa, did I have one of those moments? And I did have to reflect on it, because I think there's been a time where like as young Black women, like growing up, or like Black women of any age, I don't know, maybe at some point in their life they've probably had a time where they're just like society has made them to feel like you're not pretty the way you are, and you're not desirable the way you are, so no one will ever find you desirable with with your nappy kinky hair or this or that. And it's just like when you hear those people, like the young girls having those conversations, it's just like, man, it almost like made me feel like if I could just go back to young me and give myself the biggest hug. Because it's not that I ever felt like I was ugly as a child or undesirable, but I do feel like most young Black girls, I probably had that moment where it's like, why won't my hair just cooperate with me? Why won't why why don't I look good in this dress like this person? Why can't I wear that skirt to school like that girl wore the skirt to school? And it's like, it's because you're not built the same way as them. And that does not mean you're lesser than them. And it's just like, I loved hearing that conversation between the girls, because it's just like, it's really powerful. I think having that display of like girlhood and having that captured in that way, because it just felt so raw and authentic.
Oh, thank you. I mean, here's the thing. So two of the five girls are my daughters. So
Oh,
they're,
wow.
yeah, yeah. And so they inspired me a lot. I mean, I wanted to tell the story because here's the thing, and maybe it's different in Canada than it is in the US, but we are raised very, very connected to American culture because there really isn't a Black Canadian culture other than the Caribbean one. And so I always feel like
Mm-hmm.
Black folks in Canada are a combination of this Caribbean and American, like this is this combination of that. And so here's the thing: most of the kids, because there's only 1 million Black people in Canada to begin with, so a lot of young people, they grew up surrounded by white kids and white girls and white boys, and and then there's all that Disney stuff that we grew up with, and Hannah Montana and all this kind of stuff that these
Mm-hmm.
kids are ingesting, and they're not the center of the narrative, these young Black girls. So it is inevitable. It is inevitable in Canada, growing up as a Black girl, and I think almost anywhere in the world, where at some point you are feeling like I you know, I'm not as I'm not loving this Black shell, this gorgeous, this almost, this perfect Blackness that is me. And I
Mm-hmm.
wanted, and how I knew that was when I was growing up, I had like really like there was no makeup that fit me. There was no my mom didn't even know how to do my hair. Like it was like sending her to the shop to get her hair permed or pressed. But there was no other options. And so growing up feeling like outside of the dominant culture, it was definitely a thing for me. But by the time I got to university, I have to say, I really came into my own and felt good about what all of this was,
Mm-hmm.
and is. And then to have three daughters and to start to hear them talking, and you realize they're going through the same stuff I went through like so many years ago. But wait a minute, they've got Lupita, they've got Beyonce, they've got Rihanna. So what's going on? Why are they still having these feelings? And so
Mm-hmm.
so I realized that there is something deeper. It's not just a matter of putting um, amazing Black celebrities out there.
Mm-hmm.
If the narratives themselves don't and haven't changed. So the narratives, what I mean is like these stereotypes, these narratives that are how we are being perceived or pushed out. These are even sometimes in the Black community. So the Mammy, the Jezebel, the Sapphire, these narratives that fetishize and twist how we really are and who we are. You know what I'm saying? That so permeate the culture that some of us don't even know that that's how we're being perceived or perceiving ourselves. I mean, think about some of the shows you laughed at. I mean, I gotta tell you, I was thinking about when I was a kid, we used to watch Sanford and Son and Aunt Esther,
Mm-hmm.
okay? And like the angry Black woman who is hysterical. I laughed like my butt off when I was a kid at Sanford and Son, but I didn't really think about Aunt Esther, a woman who had desires, had wants and needs, and how none of that was ever explored. And then,
Mm-hmm.
moving forward, like so narrative after narrative, even present day narratives, still perpetuating these stereotypes about us.
Yeah.
And so going back to the young girls, the thing is that I was surprised that they were still experiencing some of those things. And I
Mm-hmm.
wanted them to just speak their truth. I wanted them to be heard. And I wanted people to know that we are having some problems, and it's because of the larger society is telling us stuff about ourselves that is not in fact true.
Yeah, well,
Mm-hmm.
you mentioned that, like, I'm in Canada too. Like, we both live in Toronto, and I'm also West Indian. I grew up in Barbados, and I moved here at the age of 29, and was it 29 or 26? 29. And the thing is that people are always surprised when I tell them back home in the Caribbean, we still face these kind of same stigmatizations, and people are thinking, but like the society is predominantly Black. Yes, but when you go into workplaces where like the owners or the managers and whoever's in charge is white, you still face these same kind of stigmatizations from them. When a lot of the TV shows that we're watching are American or British, like we're still seeing the same stereotypes that we're seeing, and like we should be able to differentiate the differences and say, oh, but I have these positive representations in my real life, in my mom, my aunt, my teachers, or whoever. But when you're watching the TV, like that does influence us, but regardless of if we're growing up in a predominantly Black society or not. And then coming to Canada, like you, as you said, Canada is this weird amalgamation, especially in the Black community, of Caribbean and American, and then like if depending on where you are, like Black, African enclaves, and like it's this weird mix. But then it's just like when I was watching the documentary, like there's like a lot of it takes place at the rehearsals for a beauty pageant. And as I was watching, I was thinking, is there any beauty pageant for young Canadian Black girls, especially for those in Toronto? And I drew a complete blank. And I was thinking, there's nothing for them. There's nothing for these young girls. We don't have a Miss Black Toronto, just like to say like we're like a space where these young girls can not only be able to talk freely about the struggles that they're having, but also be affirmed by other Black women who grew up and had the same fears and the same doubts and can inspire them. So like when watching the documentary, I think it was very important to show the importance of these patterns, because I myself can say that I did have, I guess you could say, prejudices about things like debutante balls and pageants, especially Black pageants. I'm like, because we say, why do Black people want to have the same things that white people have? Because it's just like, as you said earlier, objectification. But I'm like, no, watching this documentary, it's about being affirmed by other Black women. It's about being in a space where you feel safe to be who you are as a Black woman, as a young Black girl. And like we do need those spaces, because like outside of them, we're being told that we're not beautiful enough. We're told that our hair is not suitable and professional for work. We're being told at school, like, we have to dress a certain way. We're being told by the law that before like the Crown Act was made law, that the hair growing out of our head was not, was not suitable for certain environments. And like we do need these kind of spaces. And I think the film is very important where it shows the relevance of that. And like for people like me who would have had doubts or like prejudices or didn't fully understand, I think that's very important. And then like when you talked about the Mammy and the Jezebel and the Sapphire, like all of these stereotypes I've seen in West Indian productions, like stage plays or TV shows or films. I've seen these same exact stereotypes in West Indian and Caribbean and Bajan productions. So it's like we still take it in, and we're still taking the North American influences, which when you trace it back, it's all influenced by slavery and white supremacy. And it's just like we're enacting these harmful things on ourselves, and without even realizing it. Growing up, I didn't realize that the things that I would have been seeing on TV and even like in our culture, like for Krapopo, we have like like John Canoe and those kind of things. Like you have like these representation of Black women with like these huge butts. And then I realized when I got older, I'm like, oh wait, this is a caricature of, I think it's Seiji Bartholomew.
Yes, Taraji Barton. Yeah.
Yes.
Barton.
And it's like that's a caricature of that character. And like we put it into our West Indian culture. We put it in, we don't even know it.
Well, first of all, did you know the bustle, like the fashion where Europeans had that was based on her body. She took Europe by storm. They'd never seen anything like it. She was like in a zoo, essentially, where she was brought around like a circus. Back then they had this circus thing they were really obsessed with, and it was partly sexualized, and where she was sitting in a cage, opening her legs, and all these kinds of things. And even there were situations where there was sexualized violence against her. But she was so strange and weird that but different, that an entire fashion was shaped out of her butt. But here's the thing, the harmfulness of this kind of stuff. Taraji Barton, this is her body. But now we are in, the 2020s, and there are women that are putting on these butts, and they're being glorified in some ways. But when it's been historically on Black women, it was seen as strange and odd and ugly. And now it's like, it's sexy, and this is so these are things that we have to understand. And even like the Mammy, it's very interesting, because what I was trying to point out is like, things like this history of being written into narratives of being this caregiver, the expectations when Black women, when the war was over, that Black women then went into the homes and were taking care of white women, continuing that legacy. So here you are, you go into a space, and in a corporate space, and you have an idea, and your idea is fantastic. And here's the thing, but if you're not taking care of and caring for and emoting a certain energy, then you're angry. You're, you are someone who is dangerous, because the Black woman I'm comfortable with is the one that is going to say, come here, dear. And then when they look at my stuff and they say, oh, I really like that. Let me just take that. Let me take that idea. Let me take that thing. You're like, oh, okay. So when you don't find that caregiving, easygoing mammy, who might be, by the way, sassy, because mammy can be sassy. She can be sassy, but she's gonna always take care of you, child. So when you come across the Black lady who's like, or the Black woman or girl who's like, I'm sorry, no. People are like terrified. They're like, oh my God, I can't deal with her. Do you see how she is? So these things are so ingrained in how we see each other. Again, also, darker complected women are perceived as more angry for some reason. Why?
Right.
Like these kinds of things. And even, I have daughters, and we talk about sexuality. And I remember a time when the belly shirts and the this and the, and the titties and all this kind of stuff. And I said to them, girls, listen, you don't need to show your whole self to be loved, right? And they were like, no, it's not, that's not what it is. But then as they're getting older, they're really starting to understand that that there's even there's a extreme, like for Black girls, we're pushed to this extreme sexuality. And listen, you can be sexualized and all that kind of stuff, but it has to be at your own pace. It shouldn't be someone telling you that that's what a cool, beautiful Black woman, because because it's often, like in our culture, in many, many ways, that extreme overt sexuality is what's been applauded versus the range of beautiful sexuality that we might inhabit. So these are the dangers, right? Black girls being sexualized too young, Black girls not having options. My daughter says in the film, like she talks about having, she's she's tiny, but she has, I don't know, that girl has some titties. She has, she'll probably kill me for saying that, I apologize. And she has a little bit of a booty, and people just assume things about her. And she's not been comfortable expressing herself sexually in that way at that age, right? But the pressure. So these are things that have been put on us, and we feel, and we don't even. So I wanted the film to talk about that. And so that, I'm hoping that young girls and women will understand that no. Like, you can express yourself in these ways truly to reflect who you are, and not these narratives that get perpetuated year after year, again and again, but in different forms. It's in plays, like you said, in Caribbean plays, believe me, I've seen it, in TV shows, in movies, just one last thing about that. Well, not one last thing, but I remember watching a show where they cast, and I won't say what the show was, but they cast 3 individuals, and 2 of them were white and 1 of them was Black. And the Black lady was the heavy set woman. And I thought, oh, so you have 3 opportunities, and and so, and then the Black one, she has to be the heavyset one. Why is that? Now, again, I am heavyset, so I have no problems with that, in its own, on its own right. But I'm just saying that there are reasons why this kind of thing or this kind of casting is happening, and we have to really look at that, you know. Yeah, so anyways, that's one of my thoughts about it.
No, I I love it because it kind of answered one of my questions. But I'll still ask it because the film just feels like it's a culmination of so much. And that's probably one of my favorite things about it because it takes the audience through history, dissecting the racial stereotypes forced on Black women for years. And then it even tackles like the modern issues we face today. So blackfishing, people appropriating the looks, our features, all of that. And it's just, I was curious of like what went into the planning into kind of like telling that story, or because like you said, it sounds like you did set out to capture so much of this and like get people to understand of like, this is how society sees us and this is how it affects us and this is the result. But I wanted to hear your thoughts on like what went into that planning and like, crafting that story.
Yeah. Well, I have to say that I am a real big fan of Ava DuVernay, and she did a film called The 13th, which I think we all saw. And I've watched a lot of films about the prison industrial complex, and I've read a lot about the prison industrial complex. And of course, when we have daughters, and I think on one level I was like, oh my God, I would love sons, but I'm afraid to have sons because I won't have to see them in prison. Like, you know what I'm saying? So, but what she did with that film was she actually took us back also to look at the root cause of where this was coming from.
Right.
So, because I think part of being Black is constantly being told what you see and feel is not real. Racism ain't real, it's in your head. Black men being targeted in a way that's unjust, that's not real. What were they doing? Why were they wearing that thing? Why did they buy a lottery ticket? Like, you're constantly being told it's not real, it's in your head. And so when Ava did that film, I thought she brilliantly expressed where the root of the prison industrial complex to where it is now.
Right.
And so for Black women, though, I thought, well, for women, it's not economic and even physical prowess that we're dealing with. We're dealing with beauty because, as you know, women are judged upon their beauty. And I believe that beauty is power. Everybody knows this, right? So if you're outside of the standards of beauty, that means that you're not afforded the power of beauty, right? So that said, that was, to me, it was a power dynamic that I wanted to explore. And then I thought, how do I explore this power dynamic and show that it's not just like, oh my God, it's just a pageant, but it is in fact about power. And then when you don't have that power, how you're unprotected. So because that's the framework that I was coming from, I felt like I had to go back and really pinpoint the places where these narratives were developed and looked at the reasons behind, why do they need the mammy? Well, if you're raping all the Black women and you don't want to take responsibility or don't even perceive that it's rape, then really then you say, well, no, actually there are these fat, jolly, warm, enveloping women that you'd never want to have sex with. And then if you're caught in your hand in the cookie jar, well, it must be those wild sexual deviants that that they just can't get enough of sex. In fact, I didn't rape her; she needed to have sex. I had to do that because, frankly, that's what they want, And when the Black woman is now angry because of you taking away economic opportunities for her men, creating only a very narrow band in which they can also find any kind of fulfillment, as household maids and servants and so forth. And when you do that, and then she has to go home after getting pennies for her labor and is upset or angry, oh no, she is this angry Black woman who is the cause and destruction of her community. So I really wanted to delve into this to show that all that beauty and power, these stereotypes were created to rip apart and take away our power, take away, because they chomp at our notions of beauty. And so what I wanted to also say, and I hope I did too, was that these young Black women, they have come to a place where they understand that their beauty is powerful. They understand who they are, and they're actually comfortable and feel blessed to be in the skin they're in, but there's a journey because of these narratives, because of these stereotypes that we had to go through to get there.
And going from that, could you talk a bit about getting these young women to be a part of your documentary, and also the other guests, because you had doctors, you had people like Brittany Daniel, who is a critic, and you had and people who study this. And could you just talk a bit about getting your cast together and also shooting at a pageant? Because I just think, as I said, I think it's so interesting that you use a beauty pageant to be the setting for this, because it takes place almost exclusively in this setting. And for these young women, I thought it was an interesting juxtaposition where in the rehearsal hall you have these young women being so open with each other, and they're sharing these extremely hurtful experiences that they went through because of things that people said and did to them. But then they're also putting themselves on show on stage, like they're getting ready to bear another side of themselves to the people in the audiences at the pageant. So could you just tell me about using a pageant as your setting for that, and getting your cast and together for these discussions?
Well, so here's the thing. I thought, oh my God, when I came across the Miss Black America pageant, and and so some people know about it, but some people don't. I was so impressed and pleased to really understand that that pageant was created as a political statement. It just wasn't something that just sprung up. Black women had historically been, there was a rule number 7, that said Black women couldn't be on national beauty stages. And back in the 50s and 60s, and certainly before then, beauty pageants were the thing. It defined you. It was about, like, that was what a woman was. Now imagine that this defined the perfect woman, the woman that everybody wanted to be, and Black women were not allowed. And so, and even though they had changed the laws, like by the time the 50s rolled around, by the 60s, end of the 60s, there had been no Black women on a beauty pageant stage. So then imagine 1968, they had the Miss America pageant, where the ultimate protest of the objectification of women, this happens on the same night and across the street from the protest saying Black women are beautiful and they should be celebrated for their beauty. So it was like crazy to me. So that was what made me think this was a good vehicle to show to show what had gone on and what was continuing. And so that was what had gone on. But the continuing part was, as God is great, 2018 was the 50th anniversary of the Miss Black America pageant. And I thought, oh my God, I have to go there. And so I go, I talk to the Andersons and who run the pageant, and they give me permission, and I go to Kansas City. And I'd never been to a pageant. I'd never been a pageant girl. I've never thought about it, really, to be honest. And I even had maybe a little bit of disdain, like, really, we can, not really, but like, it wasn't an important thing to me. And I go there and I see the camaraderie. I see the support. I see the kindness. And then I thought, wow. So I really wanted to capture that. and I hope I did. I feel like I did, but that was the thing that was really powerful to me, that these Black women, they were helping each other. Even Soraya, oh, I love, adore Soraya. She wore, sneakers and, trainers. Most of her, she was not like heels. She did not know to walk in heels. And the young, the other young lady took her under their wings. And even the place where you saw, they sing Lauryn Hill, they sing that, Lauryn Hill song.
Mm.
It was completely impromptu. They were like, they'd worked hard. They had to train in heels. I mean, girl, I was like, they had to dance they were doing their routine in heels the whole time. I was like, you ladies, you are amazing. And so they were all kind of lying down on the floor. And then one of them starts to harmonize. And next thing you know, they're all singing. And I was just like, this is what happens when sisters get together, and I really wanted to show that. And so that was really, and then in terms of just getting them to talk to me, like I think in many ways, they're young women, and I have 3 daughters, and I actually thought I felt very much like, oh, I'm here and I want to protect you, and I want to show you in all your beauty. And I just was honest about that. And I think that honesty, they came back at me with their own truth. And I love the fact that we, as I'm a stranger to them, essentially, we could bond because we had a common story, we had common experiences, and they wanted to share that. And the thing is that they wanted to share that because they wanted to have this conversation out in the open. It's like, for the longest time, our conversations are within the Black community. I told some white friends, I'm like, you don't know how much we talk about you people. We talk about you people all the time. Right? It's like, oh my God, this white person, did you see this? Oh my God, So I'm like, we do. And so let's have this conversation where now you can understand, and then we can have this conversation. And then some of this behavior has to stop. So these narratives have to stop, and they're not going to stop unless we have it open and in a way that people can see the full story.
Mm-hmm. So going off of adding to the question, so I have to ask this one question because this one moment in the documentary did catch me by surprise. When Rachel Dolezal showed up, and I think I understand why she's there, but I it was just like one of the burning questions. If we got to interview you, I'd be like, I just have to know why was she there.
I know. And here's the thing, I thought, so Rachel Dolezal's story came up maybe just a little bit before I was, in 2018, I think there was a Netflix documentary that was going to come about. And I really wanted to talk to her because I felt in my history as a Black woman, I had never come across a situation where a white woman had pretended to be a Black woman for a decade. And here's the thing, Rachel represents the standard to many extent, to much extent, I should say. Blonde hair, green eyes, and even I remember her younger photos, all those freckles, which I remember was that's the Laura Ingalls, kind of, you don't know who Laura Ingalls is probably, but it was the Little House on the Prairie, and it was this image of this cute, lovely, a little blonde girl that you protect. And so she had that, and she wanted to be a Black woman so much that she gave up, quote unquote, that white privilege, that protection that is afforded to white women that have not historically been to Black women, to be a Black woman, albeit a Black woman at the highest caste in our communities, unfortunately. But so I just thought, I'm looking at Black and white women. I'm looking at the fact that Black women have not and are not the typical standard, and should never and we should not be wanting that standard. I'm looking at that, and so then I'm talking about what the standard is, and here's somebody who is that standard saying, no, I want to be Black. And to me, that's a question that had to be answered and had to be discussed. And I also felt when I met with her, I felt I understood why she wanted to be Black. I felt I understood because it's the women in the pageant, singing together and talking and liming and and being open and all of these things, all outside of our physical beauty, our heart, and all the stuff we bring to life and into our communities, and our passion, our social justice, unwavering social justice activities and beliefs, and seeing people for who they are. These are some of the things I attribute to being a Black female. And I'm like, I know why she would want that. But here's the thing. I feel like, obviously she went about it the wrong way. Because you were not born a Black woman. And that's a dishonesty that actually goes against some of what we believe in. And so but I just felt it was too important to a conversation to not include in 2022 or 2021, 2022, and some will be seen, to not have that conversation. I just, especially, I just didn't, that did not seem fulsome enough. Like, I felt like we needed to understand that. And last but not least, I understand why Black women, I think I've said this before, I understand why Black women are angry, right? Because it feels like something is being taken from us yet again. But here's the thing. Why are so many other people so mad? Why are they? And I think it's because she's right in that she walked away or abandoned white supremacy, the white privilege. She stepped away from that to some extent. And I think for some white folks, that is crushing because they have valued whiteness, in a way that that doesn't reconcile a Rachel Dolezal. And I just felt like, you know what, I had to explore that.
And I do appreciate you exploring it because, while I was just like, why is she here? Like, that was my my face was just, why is she here? But as the film does go on, it does make more sense because, like you said, the film is called Subjects of Desire, and as and I hope the audience also takes this away. What I took away from it is we as Black women are seen as desirable in different ways. That desirability can be in a romantic sense, that can be in a self-acceptance sense, that can even, but that sometimes that desirability can come to, an appropriation. And I took that away as she is kind of a prime example of the people who want to have our features and be us. And it's just yeah, I see why she's here now. So I do appreciate your explanation and diving into that conversation deeper, because I just have to ask. But I think it makes more sense. It makes more sense even the second time watching it through.
So, well, we're gonna wrap up now, but I think what I want, just to go on from that a little bit, one of the things that, as Neysha said, she is a prime example of cultural appropriation, and I would also say identity, in the fact when I people know that I watch a lot of Korean dramas, and I particularly listen to a lot of K-pop. And when you do listen to K-pop, when you watch K-pop, you see Black cultural appropriation. And it's not only Black, I wouldn't say not only American cultural appropriation, because the thing is Black music, Black American music is such an amalgamation of Black cultures from around the world. You have Caribbean, you have South African, you have Black, you have Afro-Latina influences in this music. And when I do watch and I watch these music videos, and I watch them, and I'm and I see them do things like wear braids and try to talk Black and try to use AAVE, and it's just you see us as, like, we use the term monolith a lot, but they don't. I want to ask one of them, like, okay, you're imitating a black person. Where's this black person that you're imitating from? Right? And like for someone like Richard Dozal, I'm like, okay, you want black culture, but what part of black culture? Like is it like black Caribbean culture? Is it like black South? Is it like black Southern culture? Is it like black North? You know what I mean? Like black culture where? And like one of the things was like she didn't necessarily escape her privilege because she was still would have been seen as a light skinned black woman.
No,
That itself comes with a very particular type of privilege too. So I'm like, lady, you trying to win with both ends of the stick. Like, well, come on, like you trying to have your cake and eat it too.
No, absolutely. I completely agree with you that the, like I said, she enters the black space at the level that we value that at one of the highest. That problem though is us. That's on us, because at the end of the day, we should not be valuing any part of our community at a higher level beyond what you have accomplished. What have you contributed? What have you done to get that value? And it shouldn't be because your parents were either, your grandparents or your great grandparents were either raped by, or that there was a relationship with a white person in your family. And all of that is fine and good. And, families are made up so much. And even like the African-American experience, even more so than the Caribbean experience, there was a lot of rape too. But those experiences have given us, like, all the different hues that make us up and all this kind of stuff. And, and I'm not one to say that you can't fall in love with anybody, like at the end of the day, right? But I do have a problem with the fetishization in some ways that we have with lighter complected black women in particular. And so, because then when someone like a Rachel Dolezal enters that space, they enter that space with a greater power. And look, there's statistics that I didn't put in there about the fact that if you are lighter complected, you're more likely to get married, all these kinds of things. Why? These are our problems. So, at some point, Rachel Dolezal is Rachel Dolezal, and she has to figure out, the world knows that she is in fact not a black woman, but that she loves blackness and wants to be a part of it. And some people make that space for her. But what we have to actually ask ourselves is, why have we created this space that's more valued? We've got to look at that. And I hope that's one of the things so I hope that people don't just focus on Rachel Dolezal, but they actually they see her for what she is, which is for us to say, here, look, like this woman wants to be us. So like, and she's not the only one. And that's a more extreme version of what we've seen for appropriation, but that's what all of this means. But from our side, who are we? What are we doing to change these narratives? How are we intersecting? I truly I can't get with this notion that we pretend that our choices are, because it's my preference, or it's my, but all of these, we can pretend that these are not a part of these narratives that have shaped us. And that actually, in actual fact, these are choices that you're making. You're making that choice and pretending like I that's my type. That's my type. Please. Yes, maybe it's a certain, but why is your type not a good, decent, beautiful person, versus a good, decent, beautiful person who is always a light-skinned person?
Right.
So these are some of the things that we have to actually ask ourselves.
I agree. I definitely agree. And I think your film does a great job of just like I said, it is provocative, it is thought-provoking, and I hope a lot of people take that away. To close us out, I do just have one last question. What is, and I guess you can describe it in one word or one sentence, what is the feeling that you want people to walk away with after seeing this film?
Oh gosh, that's a good one. I think the feeling I want people to walk away with is that I didn't see the connections to these narratives,
Mhm.
and I need to have a conversation. I also need to check how I see things. I have to check how I engage with Black women. I have to really understand that, like, that Black woman that you might think is so powerful or so threatening, like some of that stuff is actually made up. I want people to walk away thinking, I need to, like, really think very deeply about my perceptions, and what does, and you talk about allyship now, well, how do I be an ally with Black women? That's some, and look, and I think, and that's part of the feeling is like, wow, I didn't know this, I didn't see this, and now I see it, and I'm gonna act accordingly because I see it now. I don't know if that makes any sense.
It does. I think it does. And with that, this has been a lovely discussion. Thank you so much for coming on our show. Would love to have you back anytime. Me and Carolyn have an open door policy, so you are welcome back anytime. I hope our listeners, if you have the opportunity to watch Subjects of Desire, y'all don't hesitate. Please watch this film. It's very important, and I will scream from the mountaintops, go watch it. Like, if you need more convincing, go read my review, go read anything Carolyn's put out about it. Like, I feel like we've both been very adamant about people watching this. But Jennifer, if you want to tell people where they can follow you, if you want to be followed, feel free to plug your socials. I always make sure to add that on there because some people just be like, nah, don't follow me nowhere.
I know. Can I give it to you? Because Selena, who is my social media guru, she's like a young student who, like, no, she's not a student. She is a young social media guru. She's actually fantastic. She's like, Jen, you are sad. You need to do this. So now I have a Twitter feed. I have an Instagram feed. We got a Subjects of Desire feed. So I'm gonna let her send you the stuff, and if you could key it on somewhere, or share it, that would be great, because I'm gonna screw it up.
Yes, we will we can definitely include that in the notes on the episode post and in the show notes. But with that, I'm LaNeysha, y'all. Y'all know where y'all can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Neysha Plays. That's NEYSHA PLAYS. And Carolyn, if you want to tell the people where they can find you.
Everyone, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at CarrieCNH12. That's CARIIECNH12. You can find me on Twitter using the Saturday Night Sci-Fi hashtags, as well as Dramas with Carries, where I do live tweets for my favorite Asian dramas. And you can find this video will be on my new YouTube channel under my name, Carolyn Hinds. And this will be in the interviews channel, so you can find it there. And this has been a great discussion. Thank you so much for speaking with us, Jennifer. And this is, I think it's an important discussion that not only we needed to have, but also that the women in the Black community need to have too, because we do need to learn how to reaffirm ourselves and keep reaffirming ourselves. And I'm so glad you had India Ari in the video, because like 2001, 20 years this year, like India really did that thing, and video still holds true today. And you can find also my interviews that I did with African American Film Critics Association. You can find those videos on the YouTube channel as well as the Africa.com site. And we've been doing a whole bunch of other interviews with like the cast of Delilah. We did Exterminate All the Brutes. We did Coming to America recently. We did Gangs of Harlem starring Forrest Whitaker. Like, that's an amazing series we've done with the cast of my gosh, we have so much things, but anywho, yes, we've done a lot. I'm trying to remember, there's so much, but anywho, thank you so much for talking with us, and we're gonna sign out here. Everyone, please be safe. Thank you again, Jennifer. You and your 3 lovely daughters stay safe as well.
Yes, everyone stay safe. Okay, take care.
Bye.